Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati.
Hare Krishna. We're reading Bhagavad-gita. I'm Labangalatika. And if you're coming back, then it's a continuation. And if not, this is kind of a beginning. We're reading from the Bhagavad-gita. This is the edition that I recommend. It's from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Bhagavad-gita as it is. And Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. And we want to follow Bhagavad-gita in the line of Krishna's explanation. This is chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, and I'm starting with text 20. And we get to understand the soul, the Atma. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayang bhutva bhavita vana bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yang purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport. So this is when Srila Prabhupada is commenting on the text. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady, or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth from the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. So this is interesting. It is important to understand who we are. If we identify with a car, that would be a foolish thing to do. But sometimes we see something similar. Somebody, they own a car, they're very proud of the car, they're always with that car, and if somebody doesn't let them into the traffic, or if somebody harms their car, they become very offended. You hit me, you cut me off. No, that's not you, it's just a car. You park the car, you get out of the car, because you're not that car. The body is similar. It's not as easy to get out of it. We're in this car for the duration of the ride of our life. But it is important to understand the difference between the soul and the body. So we see that's the symptoms of lives right here. A soul is born in a body. So the soul isn't born because the soul is existing previously to the birth. The body is born, it grows. I'm going to check here so I don't miss something. Produces some effect. Sometimes we speak about offspring, but of course bodies, they produce also other things, substances. Gradually dwindles and at last vanishes into oblivion. So the body, if we create a thing, like if we have a mug, this mug does not grow, it does not produce any effect, it does not dwindle. So of course we can break it eventually, everything breaks. But the body is different. The body appears to be alive because the soul is in it. But it changes, and the soul never changes. Yes, the soul is not born, but because it takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, therefore he has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Yes, and that's Bhagavad-gita's explanation of us. It is not that at some random point in time, God had a whim and threw us into being, and then we get to float or swim, and if we fail, then this life is over and we failed. No, The soul is eternal. But as long as we're in this material world, due to our own desires to be here, and now due to our identification with the bodies, due to our continuous desires to take the next step, and of course in that next step we bring with us the past in the form of reactions. That happens and we can understand it, but it is even more important to understand that the soul is beyond that. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc. of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. The soul has no byproducts either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoot nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. So sometimes we appreciate these changes. It's very nice when we come into our youth, and when we have children, this is like fantastic. And then the body starts to dwindle. Things we used to be able to do and enjoy, the body is not quite there anymore. And at one point, it will stop functioning, and then the body will be forced to leave the body. Death comes and pulls it out of the body. And then we are bewildered and we are thrown into the next stage of our existence, which is unknown to us. In the Katha Upanishad 1-18, we also find a similar passage which reads, Najayate mriyate va vipaschin nayang kutaschin na babhuva kashchit. Ajonitya shashvato yang purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad-gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is there for daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. So this is important. We have different religions, we have different traditions and so on. And some of these spiritual principles are similar, but sometimes, some conclusions are drawn that are not supported in the Shastras, in the Vedas. We have some traditions that claim human beings have soul and animals don't have soul. This is not true. This is not a fact. Because the soul is a person, and the symptom of the soul is consciousness. And we find that in all human beings, in all animals, even we can find in plants that there is a certain consciousness, but it's more covered. We're also covered in this body. We are limited. Our consciousness cannot reach very far outside of the body. We can hear things, we can see across the room, but we can't see through the wall. And animals similarly, they are there. You can observe how they show fear and desire and pain and affection, so many things. Plants are not as obvious in their in their consciousness and in their desires, but we see they reach out for the sun, their roots reach out for the water, and sometimes they break the walls or the tarmac of the road because of this. It is the soul's consciousness springing forth, even in such a covered body. And it's important to understand that, because otherwise we create a philosophy, or we create a theology that is not based on facts, and therefore it will bewilder us, and therefore we will not be able to make the full use of the human body in this lifetime to understand and realize the soul. And therefore we read the Bhagavad-gita. The consciousness, this consciousness of the soul, however, is different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad-gita would be useless. There are two kinds of soul, namely the minute particle soul, Anu-atma, and the super soul, Vibhu-atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 1-20 in this way. Anor aniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya jantor nihito guhayam tam akratu pashyati vita shoko dhatur prasadan mahimanam atmana. Both the super soul Paramatma and the atomic soul Jivatma are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentation can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters, and Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Yeah, this is a very poetic description. Sometimes we have, of course, always the input from the impersonalist philosopher who takes this example. The body is like a tree and the soul is sitting in the tree. And next to the soul, super soul is also there. But super soul does not get entangled, does not get bewildered, does not get drawn here and there by the desires of the senses. And sometimes it's described as two birds in the same tree. So one bird is busy looking for the fruits, looking for the enjoyment. Sometimes you find a sweet fruit, sometimes you find a bitter fruit. And there is happiness and frustration and fear and lamentation going on and on. Super soul is simply sitting there and waiting as a friend, waiting for his friend to turn to him. And at one point when we do, then super soul guides us and directs us. And sometimes we have philosophers who speak of the bird merging with the tree, and then we're all one with super soul. But that's not true. We see this, especially in Vrindavan, there are many green parrots, and they may fly into a tree, and they may look very similar, and it may be difficult to distinguish where does the tree begin and where does the bird start. But we know that bird will also fly out of the tree at one point because it's different than the tree. And we're also different from this body, and we're also distinct from super soul. So that's basis of the spiritual understanding, to first of all understand that we are not this body, first of all understand how this consciousness is the symptom of the soul, and then we can look around and suddenly we can see the spirit soul in every living entity. We can understand the symptom of the soul is consciousness, personality, desire, and we can see the difference between inert matter and the actual spirit soul. And then we can base our decisions on that. Then we can have some motivation to continue our studies, to continue to pick up a spiritual path and become a little determined, a little focused on that. And the next thing also to understand, as much as the spiritual nature is very similar, each person is an individual, and we're also different from super soul, we're different from God. We are not suddenly becoming God just because we understand that we are the spiritual life force. So there is us and everybody else. There is Krishna, and there is this body and this material world. And suddenly we can disentangle ourselves from this continuous birth and death. We can start on that path. We can understand we are not just suddenly here because we were born here. We come from somewhere. We are somebody. We're an actual, real live spiritual soul, and our life can be full of meaning. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam